This is Radio TV Phono Nut, and here's something that I picked up at the flea market, and this is so low end that I couldn't leave it behind. This is an Electro Brand AM/FM stereo music center. As you can see, it has an AM/FM tuner and a cheapo cassette deck. It looks just like the decks that were in some of the cheap car stereos in the Thomas and Crosley replica cathedral and tombstone radios that you slide the tape in the side and all you have is play, fast forward, and eject. I remember in '89 I received one of those Thomas cathedral radios for Christmas. I think I was 13, and the cassette deck was the very first thing to go out on it. This thing's in decent shape. It's been well cared for. Has the owner's manual taped to the top of it. Now here's the odd thing about it. Don't know exactly when this was made, but I'd say early to mid '80s. And this thing doesn't even have a ceramic phono input or an auxiliary input. And when I first picked this up and noticed that, I put it back down because my whole reason for picking it up was figuring that it had a phono input jack on it and I could at least pair it with a BSR mini changer or something, but this thing doesn't even have that. And I don't really understand that because when this was made, records were still fairly big, so you'd have thought they would have at least added a phono jack. I have no idea if this thing works or not, so let's see if we can find a couple of speakers and check it out. Found a pair of speakers that went with an early '70s Morse electrophonic stereo, and I remember the voice coil and one of them was rubbing, but still good enough for a test, and I'm sure these are much higher end speakers than what came with this originally. This probably had a couple of little plastic enclosed 4-inch speakers. Alright, let's turn it on and see what happens.
Beautiful, crazy. All these different arms, are you being soft? You know that I want you. You really been working. You deserve a Birkin. Girl, you so content.
There's Shango's mumble rap.
Digital expansion. If you have the skills and
place where grown folks go to party.
At T's Lounge starting Sunday night at 8, it's the Buddha Bowl contest.
Velcro-like crackle in the lungs, which a doctor...
Thing's got more volume than I figured it would have.
is also one of those.
You know, why don't you go put on your snowball hat and listen to that?
Alright, AM.
Find out.
Community Chapel, 2615 State Boulevard.
Conference, he has stolen one base so far. Joy special event. Like a date.
Every empty seat at a concert.
Alright, let's try the cassette deck. I'll be surprised if it plays. And here's our test cassette, Gordon Lightfoot, Summertime Dream. I had this on vinyl, so if some by chance this tape gets mangled, it won't be a huge loss. Alright, here we go. Now, it don't sound like I'm hearing anything. Okay, it's trying to. Yeah, I think this probably needs belts. Well, it didn't mangle the tape, that's good, but this thing's definitely going to need some belts at the bare minimum. And I see this tape came from the Sound Shop, which was a local record store that was located in the old Village Fair Mall, and if you just watched Audubon 5425's video, he was recently in town for a visit and made a video on the now abandoned dump. It closed for the most part in '97 when the new mall was built, but it was completely abandoned by probably 2001, maybe 2 at the latest. And it's basically just an eyesore now that needed to have been torn down years ago. But yeah, the Sound Shop was located inside that mall, and as you can tell, this tape was bought November the 21st of '95. This thing has a Drift-O-Matic FM tuner in it.
And by the way,
flip it to tape. Well, it's not doing it now, but it was. Flip it to tape, flip it back, and it can go to the next station.
college basketball. Here's the thing.
Okay, let's open this up and have a peek inside. Here's a look at the inside. Much to my surprise, it uses actual output transistors instead of an IC. Usually these cheaper stereos by the 80s had a little dual channel IC, and that was it. There's the cheap cassette mechanism. This doesn't really look like one that was really meant to be serviced. I mean, this thing probably cost $49.95 whenever it was new, and that's the kind of thing you usually use it until it quits, and then you throw it away. Alright, there you go. A cheap Electro Brand stereo from the early to mid-80s. Doesn't even have a phono input on it. But I guess in all fairness, with a couple of decent speakers, it would make an okay radio for a shop or a garage or whatever, but, you know, it is what it is. And looking at the instructions, they were nice enough to give us a schematic diagram, which you don't see hardly ever anymore. You're not going to get that with your Crosley Cruiser that you buy new today. And here's your specifications: 1.5 watts of audio power at 10% distortion. I don't know whether that's 1.5 per channel or 1.5 total. It could go either way here. No date anywhere on the instruction manual or the warranty thing that lists the list of authorized service centers if you have a repair need for this. But yeah, there you go, something from the cheap low-end department from the 80s. Maybe some of you actually remember these. I remember some cheap stuff from the 80s, but everything I remember at least had a phono input on it, or at least it did up until the early 90s when records were pretty much considered a dead format.